Now we go to item 5, commencement of business of the day. Secretary General.
Notice of motion for the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs.
Notice of motion for the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs. Honorable Gertrude Imenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs for the 37th Plenary Assembly Session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, laid on the table of the House on 7th July 2015.
Any seconder? Seconder, yes. What is that? This is Angola. Yes. Angola, you have the floor.
Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente. Em apoio a esta proposta, permita-me que me debruce sobre uma questão que é de extrema importância para o êxito dos nossos programas enquanto fórum. Trata-se da questão de implementação do projeto de atividade que nos propusemos realizar. Como bem disse a senhora Presidente da Comissão de Desenvolvimento Humano e Programas Especiais, tem conseguido angariar muitos recursos para a implementação dos seus vários projetos. As várias comissões desta Assembleia Plenária concordam sobre as...
Honorable Speaker, let me interrupt you a little bit. You will come to full presentation or full expression of your sentiments at a later time. As of now, you just say, I second the motion. As a matter of procedure. Would you do that now? You just say, I second the motion. Would you do that now, Honorable?
Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente. Eu apoio a moção, sim. Muito obrigado.
Thank you. Thank you. I now call upon Honorable Imenda to present the report of the Standing Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs. Honorable Imenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs, guided by its mandate in terms of Rule 41E of the Rules of Procedure, convened its third meeting on Wednesday 27th and Thursday 28th May 2015 at Pakalani Golf Estate Resort in Gaborone, Botswana. The national parliaments of Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, Namibia, South Africa, Swaziland, Seychelles, United Republic of Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe were present at the meeting. Apologies were recorded from the national parliaments of Angola, Lesotho, Mauritius, and Mozambique. Credentials of the members. 10 of the 14 SADC national parliaments were present as follows. Honorable Gertrude Mwendaweli, Imenda, MP Chairperson, Zambia. Honorable Duma Boko, MP, Botswana. Honorable Lumea Malegi, MP, Democratic Republic of Congo. Honorable Dr. Jessica Wheeler, MP, Malawi. Ms. Faustina Enikali, Namibia. Honorable Sylviane Vermont, MP, Seychelles. Honorable Sheikh A.M. Emam, MP, South Africa. Honorable Sen Bonsile Mugometutu, MP, Swaziland. Honorable Eng Stella Manyanya, MP, Tanzania. And Honorable Jasmine Tofa, MP, Zimbabwe. Apologies were duly registered from Honorable Candida Celeste, Vice Chairperson. Honorable Ntekeleng Mufolo, Lesotho. Honorable Dr. Balkson, Hong Kong, Mauritius. And Honorable Rosa Manuel Andrade da Silva, Mozambique. Mr. President, during the committee session under review, the committee considered 3 substantive matters. critical to its operations. The three matters were compliance of the SADC Parliamentary Forum to the 2 grant agreements being implemented through this programs committee, key capacity development activities undertaken, and issues surrounding willful and intentional transmission of HIV, exposure and non-disclosure. Sir, allow me as a way of giving an update to this plenary assembly to highlight that a few salient issues encountered by the committee in considering the above. So the issue of compliance to signed agreements by the Forum is an issue of paramount importance that speaks to the ability of the Forum and parliaments to utilize the funds at their disposal. It also calls for serious introspection on whether, indeed, there is value for money in investing in the institution of Parliament. So, the following were considered: the 4-year sexual and reproductive health rights, that's SRHR, HIV and AIDS and governance report, and a 2-year SADC HIV financing project are currently underway, thanks to the financial support of the government of Sweden and the governments of SADC. These activities were being undertaken pursuant to a resolution passed by the 35th Plenary Assembly session. In December 2014, the funds were availed to the SADC Parliamentary Forum to administer on behalf of member states' parliaments as they implemented the project activities. As part of the SADC financing project activities, the National Assembly of Seychelles has since established a parliamentary committee on HIV, AIDS, and reproductive health. Regrettably, Malawi, Mauritius, Swaziland, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe were yet to make progress on their chosen activities. Further, in accordance with the committee's resolution, the Health, Economics, and HIV and AIDS Research Division, HERD, was commissioned to conduct a baseline survey to inform the current status of activities carried out by parliaments on SRHR, HIV and AIDS, and governance. So, in particular, the Plenary Assembly is requested to note that the baseline survey took longer than planned to complete because some parliaments were slow in responding to requests for information and general cooperation with researchers commissioned to conduct the survey was sluggish. Further, whereas the program had offered to help parliaments to recruit researchers to support their committees, some parliaments took a long time to hire these researchers. So I wish to note with appreciation that Lesotho, Seychelles, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Tanzania had been able to fill the positions of SRHR researchers, which was a prerequisite in ensuring that capacity was in place at national level to oversee the implementation of the various SRHR projects being undertaken by the Forum. Angola and Mauritius were yet to complete the recruitment process. So let me conclude this section by stating that the committee observed that while budgetary constraints were usually cited as the main reason why parliamentarians were not capacitated or incentivized to perform their constitutionally mandated roles, the contrary was the case for the HSDS program. The program is endowed with sufficient resources for a number of its activities. However, since 2014, the program had consistently underspent. These reports that the drawdown of financial resources for the program had been slow were even more disturbing in the context of criticism laid against most parliaments, owing to their inability to hold governments to account around a common vision. So, for the committee to implement activities planned under the program and seek more resources than to appear to be choking on the available resources, Plenary is requested to call on all members of the forum to ensure that national parliaments took full advantage of the opportunities that the forum's partners made available as a key responsibility to ensure that resources were spent for the good of the people of SADC. Mr. President, this august House may wish to note that as part of the committee's concrete steps towards dealing with the issue of child marriage, as resolved during the 36th Plenary Assembly, the HSDS program, in collaboration with the European Parliaments with Africa, that's AWEPA, and Plan Zambia, hosted a regional dialogue from 3rd to 4th February 2015 on the issue. A follow-up national consultation workshop was planned to be held in Zambia during the period 23rd to 24th June 2015, while a similar gathering would be held in Mozambique on a date to be advised. The program had also secured technical and financial support from the AIDS Rights Alliance of Southern Africa, ARISA, and OSISA to strengthen the capacity of parliamentarians to respond to SRHR issues, some of them being those that affected lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex persons, commonly referred to as the LGBTI. Additionally, some members of parliament had also had the opportunity to attend one of the 3 series partnership forum, an opportunity for key partners of the Global Fund to participate in the long-term strategy development of the fund for the period 2017 to 2021, held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia on the 7th and 8th May 2015. Willful and intentional transmission of HIV, exposure and non-disclosure. Sir, I'm duty-bound as the chairperson of this committee to remind this assembly that in 2008, the SADC Parliamentary Forum adopted the SADC model law on HIV and AIDS with a view to reject any coercive measures related to HIV and AIDS prevention, given that the issue of criminal law as a response against the HIV pandemic is mostly futile. Nevertheless, during the HSDS-PF committee sitting at the 36th Plenary Assembly session, the issue of criminalization of HIV transmission was brought up as a contentious issue. Some countries expressed the strong view that intentional and/or negligent transmission should attract a penal sanction, and therefore criminal law should be considered as a deterrent. So this assembly may wish to note that the SADC model law on HIV and AIDS is a comprehensive document that provides members of parliament sitting material with which to review national laws and an established framework for refocusing their efforts on removing legal barriers to HIV prevention, treatment, and care, and on effectively addressing the very factors that made women and other vulnerable groups, such as injecting drug users, men who have sex with men, and sex workers, more vulnerable to HIV. The SADC model law on HIV and AIDS reiterated that criminalizing HIV transmission does not stop new HIV infection, but that the law ought to be used to fight discrimination and stigma and to protect women and other vulnerable groups from infection. Further, the revision of national laws should be aimed at removing legal barriers to HIV prevention, treatment, and care services. So during this session, country reports were tabled, taking into account all the country reports presented during the meeting and pursuant to the presentations made by various experts. It became apparent that criminalization of HIV was counterproductive in the fight against the scourge of HIV. rather than contribute to efforts aimed at preventing and stopping HIV. Criminalization of HIV could, 1, create a sense of false security by placing legal responsibility exclusively on people living with HIV for preventing the transmission of the virus, thus undermining the public health message that everybody should practice safer sexual behavior regardless of their HIV status. In this regard, people may wrongly assume that their partners were HIV negative because they had not disclosed their status, and thus not take measures to protect themselves from HIV infection. 2, have the effect of deterring people from getting tested and finding out their HIV status, as lack of knowledge of one's status could be the best defense in a criminal prosecution. Indeed, in jurisdictions with HIV-specific criminal laws, HIV testing counselors were often obliged to caution people that getting an HIV test would expose them to criminal liability if they found out that they were HIV positive and continued to have sex. In some cases, the counselors were forced to give evidence of a person's HIV status in a criminal trial. 3, except in very limited circumstances, reinforce the stereotypes that people living with HIV were immoral and dangerous criminals rather than like everyone else, people endowed with responsibility, dignity, and human rights. 4, do nothing to address the epidemic of gender-based violence or the deep economic, social, and political inequality that were at the root of women and girls' disproportionate vulnerability to HIV. On the contrary, these laws were likely to be used to prosecute women more often than men, since women engage with the health system more frequently than men. And that is for women, that is including during pregnancy and during childbirth. And were thus more likely to become aware of their HIV positive status than men. 5, place a woman who disclosed her HIV positive status to her partner and refused to have sex without a condom in order to avoid being prosecuted for transmitting HIV to their partner at risk of violence, eviction, disinheritance, loss of her children, and other severe abuses and consequences. 6, be used to prosecute women who transmitted HIV to their children during pregnancy or breastfeeding. For millions of women living with HIV, but with no access to prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, such laws made pregnancy, wanted or not, a criminal offense. And 7, not protect women and girls from coercion or violence that could transmit HIV, such as rape, including marital rape, among others. 8, likely to result in an increased risk of selective or arbitrary prosecution of the socially or economically marginalized groups, given the stigma and discrimination that still surrounded HIV. These could include immigrants, refugees, foreigners, or sex workers. And 9, present challenges related to the evidential burden. It was difficult to prove that the accused person was HIV positive at the time of the alleged offense, as well as who infected whom and when. Besides, in order to prove guilt, scientific evidence of transmission by the accused person was required. And currently, although there were tests which could establish similarities between the HIV viruses of the two parties, this was not proof beyond reasonable doubt of the source of the virus. Hence, there was the risk of conviction without sufficient evidence. These tests were also expensive. Mr. President, the committee further strongly recommends, in light of the above, 1, that this 37th Plenary Assembly reaffirms its commitment to the values and principles contained in the SADC model law on HIV and AIDS with regard to non-enactment of laws specifically criminalizing HIV transmission. 2, that this plenary assembly makes a pronouncement urging member states to take into account the current scientific evidence and progress made in new technologies in prevention and treatment of HIV, and review the existing laws criminalizing HIV. 3, that the Secretariat be tasked to formulate some activities that would enable SADC parliamentarians to effectively participate in the Ending AIDS campaign. To facilitate resource mobilization, a programmatic approach should be taken in developing these activities. Included among these activities should be a regional consultative conference on SRHR, which would be aimed at engaging and sensitizing traditional and religious leaders, specifically on pertinent issues pertaining to HIV and AIDS, as part of parliamentarians' contribution towards the campaign. And 4th, that the SADC Secretariat be requested to make a presentation to the Committee on Human and Social Development and Special Programs at its next sitting as regards the state of human trafficking in the region. In the meantime, the Secretariat should explore ways and means of facilitating the committee to play a more active role in issues of human trafficking in the region. Allow me, sir, now to pay tribute to all the members of this committee for their dedication and hard work. I also wish to thank all experts who made submissions to this committee. I further wish to place on record our gratitude to the AIDS Rights Alliance of Southern Africa, ARESA, for the technical and financial support. I beg your pardon. Yes, ARESA, for the technical and financial support rendered and the support and guidance provided by the Secretary General of the SADC Parliamentary Forum. I thank you, sir, and I beg to move.
Thank you indeed. I will now call upon the seconder, Honorable Candida da Silva, to debate seconding the motion. Honorable, you have the floor.
Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente. Em apoio a esta proposta, permita-me que me debruce sobre uma questão que é de extrema importância para o êxito do nosso programa enquanto fórum. Trata-se da questão da implementação dos projetos e atividades que nos propusemos realizar. Como bem disse a Sra. Presidente da Comissão de Desenvolvimento Humano e Social, e programas especiais têm conseguido angariar muitos recursos para a implementação dos seus vários projetos. As várias sessões desta Assembleia Plenária concordaram sobre as atividades a serem implementadas pela Comissão de Desenvolvimento Humano e Social e Programas Especiais, entre outras. Senhor Presidente, durante a 35ª Assembleia Plenária realizada em junho de 2014 nas Maurícias, a Assembleia comprometeu-se inequivocamente a implementar os programas de saúde sexual e reprodutiva, direitos, VIH e SIDA e governação, a fim de alcançar o acesso universal e equitativo aos serviços de saúde sexual e reprodutiva, VIH e SIDA, incluindo garantir o gozo de uma saúde melhor e respeito pelos direitos humanos da mulher e a menina na região da SADC. Na mesma Assembleia Plenária, os parlamentos membros decidiram também implementar as atividades no âmbito do projeto de financiamento do combate ao HIV da SADC. Senhor Presidente, apesar da referida das referidas expressões de engajamento por parte dos parlamentos-membros, o Secretariado tem tido dificuldades em fazer com que os parlamentos-membros implementem de facto as referidas atividades. Em muitos casos, os parlamentos não têm correspondido às solicitações do Secretariado. Por exemplo, quando o Secretariado pediu aos parlamentos para se juntarem aos projetos de financiamento de combate ao HIV da SADC, submetendo cartas de endosso. Apenas 5 dos 14 parlamentos responderam a tempo. 2 dos parlamentos responderam muito além do prazo, embora o Secretariado tenha conseguido incluí-los no projeto. O resto dos parlamentos-membros não se dignou a responder. Uma vez que a carta de endosso era uma pré-condição para a participação de um parlamento-membro no projeto, só aqueles que responderam estão a implementar o projeto. Os parlamentares são convidados a notar que, para que uma proposta de projeto seja reconhecida como uma submissão regional, deve merecer o apoio de pelo menos 5 países. Nesta ótica, a falta de respostas dos parlamentos-membros pode resultar a perda de oportunidades de financiamento ou até da suspensão de financiamentos já conseguidos. Senhor Presidente, ficou ainda reconhecido que já chegou o tempo de passar da formulação de decisões à implementação. Por isso, foi elaborada uma estrutura robusta de monitoria e avaliação, visando assegurar que o progresso no âmbito dos referidos projetos possa ser avaliado com regularidade. O processo da monitoria e avaliação vai fornecer dados sobre o que funciona e o que não funciona através de um procedimento científico e ajudar a redirecionar as prioridades do projeto, de tal forma que o diálogo entre os deputados e os parceiros, como os decisores no governo, a sociedade civil e a comunicação social, seja consolidado, ao mesmo tempo que são alcançados os objetivos gerais dos projetos. Além disso, a monitoria e a avaliação permitem-nos proceder à averiguação das medidas tomadas relativamente aos compromissos assumidos pelos parlamentos-membros. Desta forma, ajuda a aumentar a responsabilização e a transparência. Isto só pode beneficiar aos parlamentares, uma vez que os ajuda a recolher as provas de impacto do seu trabalho. Com pouca documentação, é muito difícil identificar os impactos do reforço parlamentar ou fazer generalizações sobre o que funciona e o que não funciona. Por isso, é preciso documentar os impactos do trabalho do reforço parlamentar. Atividades no âmbito do projeto de financiamento do combate ao HIV da SADC. Senhor Presidente, desculpa, Senhor Presidente. Ademais, o reforço parlamentar pode também ser avaliado através de discussões entre representantes interessados na sociedade, incluindo representantes da comunidade social, dirigentes governamentais e organizações da sociedade civil. Precisamos de refletir sobre o facto que a eficácia dos parlamentos não é apenas uma questão de fazer com que o governo mude a sua legislação ou política geral. Formas igualmente importantes, mas menos óbvias, incluem providenciar um fórum para debate público sobre uma questão levantada, o perfil de uma questão particular e política geral, destacando áreas de fraqueza dentro da administração. Devemos poder fazer a monitoria da quantidade e qualidade dessas atividades que se espera venham a aumentar. Permita-me que termine dizendo que foram contratados pesquisadores pelos parlamentos de 6 países que vão continuamente recolher dados e fazer monitoria e avaliação do progresso dos seus respectivos parlamentos para as atividades do âmbito do projeto de financiamento do combate ao HIV pela SADC. Encorajamos os parlamentos a prestar o seu pleno apoio aos referidos pesquisadores para que o trabalho dos deputados possa ser salientado no impacto dos projetos, visando criar a capacidade dos parlamentos e possam ser bem avaliados. Peço encarecidamente todos os delegados nesta Assembleia Plenária para que acordem um interesse particular a essa atividade para que o Fórum possa cumprir com as suas obrigações, bem como os objetivos dos projetos. Senhor Presidente, termina aqui a minha intervenção de apoio à proposta de aprovação do relatório da Comissão. Muito obrigada, Senhor Presidente.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member.